love the way that Mary Hettmansperger's mind works, because I said cutouts and you brought these amazing assemblages.
Well, thank you, thank you. They're fun, they're really fun. I love assembling different things together, and I love rust, I love found objects. So the idea of taking canvas and making something that can incorporate everything.
So this is crazy to me, because I would never look at this and say, you started with canvas.
I did start with canvas. These were actually some really interesting canvases that I found that have like a cutout. They actually come this way, and they are made so that they, you know, will completely encase anything you want. What I found, though, is that, you know, you're limited by sizes. So I've actually made, I'm going to show you how to make some of your own today, your own sizes. But one thing I do is I first, you know, gesso the board or gesso the canvas, get it ready to do whatever I'm going to do. I can paint on it. I like to rust. So I use a two-part product where it's got, you know, the iron in the paint. You paint that over, then you use the second part, which rusts the.
So I assume that by gessoing, you're actually protecting the canvas so the rust won't actually eat through and destroy your piece.
Well, and it also just lays down a nice layer so it won't crack, and, you know, just the same way you always put gesso down. So I can rust it. Once it rusts, then like on this piece over here, I took magic marker and, you know, wrote on it. Just wrote right over the top of it.
Cool. So how are we going to make our own?
Well, it's really quite easy. I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, if I take two pieces, what I like about any kind of canvas is you've got that wood. If I'm wanting to cut this center out, I have found that I actually just kind of got to see through a little bit and start.
You're not using scissors there.
Well, I just made the hole.
Okay. I was like, how are you? Those are wire snips. You really can just use anything to do that first piercing.
I just want to pierce it through. And I don't quite go all the way, and then I cut to the corners.
Okay, because actually the question I was going to ask you, Mary, is why you weren't just flipping it over to use the side with the staples, but now I can see it's because you want that nice finished top.
Right.
You don't want the sort of ugly side.
And now I use metal a lot of times, and I will actually use that if I'm going to cover it up. But on this, I want to have that canvas, so in case I want to use it.
Pretty finished edge.
Right. Now, you can finish this a couple different ways. I sometimes just use the glue.
I was going to say a glue stick is one of those tools that, you know, every artist should have in their toolbox.
And I just pull this up.
So even though this is heavy gessoed canvas, you're able to just go ahead and manipulate it around.
I have never had one go bad on me. And I just lift all of these edges up, and then I've got the
nice clean area.
Nice clean real estate to play with.
Cool.
So, yeah. So I can do that. If I'm insecure or having an insecure moment, I can go in easily with a staple gun. And just put a few staples in, and it's super easy. So once you get this done, then I was going to show you how I set this up. So I actually went ahead.
By the way, you just painted this black, I assume, and that's the only difference.
And right, and I like the paint. I gessoed it first and then painted it black, but I like to actually get an idea how it's going to look when I get done. So I will set it all up. Then I go ahead and do this, because it never fails that when you're right in the middle of a project, how did I do that? And
right.
So I'm ready to go
because
with
I would
this.
be of the dump it out school and then be like, oh no, it doesn't fit anymore. This is what happens to me every time I pack my suitcase.
Well,
suddenly I can't go home again because nothing fits.
Never fits. This is double side, like a sticky adhesive tape thing. And I found that this works as good as anything. You can use two-part glues. You can use any types of glue. So I'm going to show you how to do this tie that I did. And this is a pretty thin gauge wire. This is like a 28. You can go thicker. Is
this like a craft wire? Is it actual metal? Like, is
either
it aluminum?
It doesn't matter. Just the gauge is the main thing. And I'm going to start out, and I am going to basically come in, and this is where pliers are kind of nice. I'm going to make a nice sharp right angle. Now I have no rocks in here because right now they'd all fall off. So I'm going to come in like this, basically coming around. And this is actually, believe it or not.
Can we show the back for just 1 second so that people can see what you did if you need more hands?
I just came around. I'm just holding that edge. I'm coming around, and then I'm going to catch this. This is like a half hitch. It's actually a Japanese packaging technique for eggs.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool. It's almost like you're using this wire so thin, it's almost like you're using it like string.
It is, it is. And now I've got the beginning, and I can take this rock.
I see, so you put the adhesive down for the first rock, then you continue
Then I can start to work it, yeah. And once you start the connections, then you're really pretty good to go. Then you can go to the next rock. I know.
So would you put another piece of adhesive under there normally?
Here,
can
I'll have you pull
I
that.
be with your friend here and help you out with that?
That would be very helpful.
There you go. The thing that I always like about creating, I feel like I need this in my life, is somebody to actually just do all my pre-work.
Just somebody to grab the rock, yeah.
Or it's like, you're a chef who has somebody who cuts everything up. Why can't artists have that?
I know. And the reason I take the pliers and do that is because I do want a really sharp
90-degree
where it's
bend.
going to catch. Yep. So when I come through here then.
So this is, I mean, you actually could do this with like colored embroidery floss or like book binding.
You can, like
I was going to
wax
say
linen,
wax
yeah.
linen would be really good because it would be really strong because you don't want it to break, and very colorful. I can see how you could do this.
But you can see how it's now starting to take shape.
Yeah, and I can see that you could do this with all kinds of found objects, not just rocks. You could put little eggs or treasures or doll parts or whatever it is that you collect and really make something magical.
Yeah, it's really fun. And when you get, the one nice thing about this is that this all ends up in the back of the piece, and it can end up being your hanger for the actual piece.
I was going to say, I was wondering why you were looking for more adhesive. It's because you have a twin here.
If you look, when I come around then, that very first one that I started with ends up being my hanger. And everything just keeps getting connected as I go.
So now when you have two rocks like that, do you have to do anything differently than when you're just trying to cage one item?
No, not really. I mean, as long as it's not going to slip out, that's the main thing. And you just want to keep it going.
So when you would hang this, I'm thinking that you could actually, I mean, yes, you could hang it, but actually on a table, it would be a nice little centerpiece. You could do some creative stuff, kind of creating a rock garden, or even putting some fresh blossoms on top of it from time to time would be really nice.
It is. And I've also had a lot of times where you can actually fill this this crevice,
the niche,
with cement. Ooh. Or you can put resin. Oops,
oh, because I just realized you haven't even adhered the two canvases together in any way.
This is the way they're going to be
This is adhering it.
This is adhering it, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which is really quite nice.
And actually, once the initial cage is done, you could add all kinds of embellishments, beads, and all kinds of stuff on top of it to even further make it decorative.
And even if I decided after the fact, if I said, okay, now I want to rust it, I can rust it later. I mean, I don't have to rust it.
I keep thinking you're saying rest. You're saying rust, right?
Rust.
If you want to rust it. So actually, you could paint your rust on top of
the whole thing, right.
Which would be really, really cool. So I was wondering what the bench block is there for. Are you going to hammer some wire for this?
Well, what I do with the bench block is the heavier gauge wire. What I do is, as you can see in this piece, I've got the heavier gauge wire that came across. I hammered it, especially in this one, it really shows, because I've got where you can see then the thickness, and it really stays put. It looks neat, looks, hand forged.
Well, also, I'd like to point out something really exciting about the back of this, which is it actually can hang both ways.
Yes.
It can hang either vertically or horizontally,
Once
and
you
that's
get
a really
that wire
great
in there,
option
yeah, it's really nice.
to put in there. Now, what are these cool things?
Well, these are just little nails that I've found, and these are the ones that I attached on there, and that's just by, I don't know if you ever made a basket, a little God's eye type thing. These are, I put those on basically by that same technique with a little cross hatch.
So what would we do to sort of finish this off?
Well, we would have got a longer wire in the beginning.
So if you need to add on a piece of wire, how do we do that?
If I need to add on a piece of wire in the beginning, what I would probably do is I would do it on the back side. So I would come back here.
And then you're just going to sort of tie it in.
Exactly.
That's clever, and then you can keep going.
Keep going.
Even if you don't cut it the right size, you're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine.
But then you can keep going, and then you bring that last one all the way across, connect it with the first one that I had, which is right here, which was too long, and that's how you finish off your piece.